mentioned the genre of Metroidvania. The idea of these big sprawling maps that you get locks or keys that fit a bunch of different locks that continually expand the world open and open. D&D isn't that. D&D is the players find their keys first, and then the DM puts locks that they're allowed to open in place, right? It's not the other way around most of the time. A lot of DMs aren't going to make language barriers so comprehend language is a way that the world expands. They just will make language barriers if they know the players have comprehend language and want to be playing in that kind of environment.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Comprehend Languages.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? I don't
Dónde
know.
está la biblioteca?
How could I? But the moment we started recording, I was like, I have to get the community reference. What's community reference? That's the one. I'm disappointed in myself and proud of you. This is,
I'm proud of you for having seen a piece of media.
a piece of media. Well, that one's like my generation's media.
Okay,
So
that's
like,
true.
okay. So comprehend languages. This is a little ritual spell for bards, sorcerers, warlocks, wizards. Notably, not all those are ritual casters. Warlocks don't get it innately, but you know the rest of them you can use cast this with a ritual tag. And I think if you get this as a ritual tag, it kind of like solves a lot of the game's language problems. Because what it says is it doesn't have concentration. It's got an hour duration, and for the duration, you understand the literal meaning of any spoken language you hear. You also understand any written language you see, but must be touching the surface the words are written on. It takes a minute to read one page of text. Spell doesn't decode secret messages and arcane sigils and stuff like that.
Okay,
That's it.
I mean, the biggest problem is, though, there aren't typically a lot of language problems.
That's and like I sometimes will pose the question, well, is it a chicken or an egg problem? Because this exists, is it just too easy to overcome language barriers? But I don't think that's the case in this instance. I think it's just having deliberately obscured information from people isn't that of fun of a problem to solve, right? Like whenever you come across the old Yiddish woman that doesn't speak any language that anyone's spoken outside of a niche European country in 3 centuries, it's not a fun experience a lot of the time to try and translate, right? Like it is inherently somewhat frustrating, and people don't necessarily want that at their D&D tables, especially whenever like, you know, hypothetical lives are on the line. So it it doesn't really serve much purpose, I find, anymore. That being said, I do like this as a little utility tool that opens up world building, and I like this as a little utility tool that you don't have to invest that much into to get the utility out of.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a way to facilitate and say, okay, you know, the goblins start making fun of you in Goblin, and you can go, well, next time I want to comprehend languages, so I can, you know, say, hey, stop talking smack. I can understand every word you're saying. You know, that's a thing you can do, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, communication is possible because there's the common tongue, and yeah, most DMs don't want to deal with translation issues. But I like what you said there. I mean, different languages do exist. The goblins can speak in their own language, thinking you don't understand, and this could be a little neat way to surprise them.
It could. And I think like once or twice a campaign, if that's the style of game you're running, you could very easily, I could see, spend an action cast as understand what's being said.
Yeah.
Right. Paralyzmatic visual components means it won't necessarily be discreet, but you do have the way to get it up whenever you need to like try and understand what other things are talking around you. If there's an elven council and you're concerned that they're trying to screw you all over, you can go, okay, well, I'm going to listen to what they're saying in Elvish because no one else here speaks Elvish, and then you'll be fine. A lot of the time, people are going to incidentally have one or two languages around the table, and if we're talking like the core languages of D&D, it's like what goblins speak, the most common enemies, whatever they speak. So like kobolds, it's draconic if that's your main villain, right? It's there, whatever that core villainous language is. And then there's Elvish, Dwarvish, Common. Like that's like 95% of the needed languages. And I think like at least Elvish Common is almost always taken by every player party ever because
Yeah.
elves are unbelievably popular and humans are unbelievably popular. And then dwarves are not that popular, so Dwarvish might be like around where Gnomish is as far as how valuable it probably is. But
Dwarves are
like,
super popular. Everybody loves dwarves. I don't. But
oh, the statistics beg to differ, Bob. We should do a
okay.
video talking about the breakdowns of like what the D&D Beyond characters say are the most popular races and stuff. I think tieflings outmatch dwarves as far as that's not that
Well,
surprising.
yeah, people like tieflings too.
People love
Tieflings are
tieflings, yeah.
pretty cool.
They're sweet, they're devil people. And you
Yeah,
only play humans. Or half elves if you're feeling spicy.
that's right. I like the fantasy to feel closer to home.
Yes, yes, yes. That's why you have every single one of your characters also has to have a beard, I'm assuming, and glasses and a nice little hat. Nah, just
The beard is recent.
that's true.
And it might go again. My wife
Who
wants me to
knows?
cut it off.
In any case, this is all to say, like, comprehend languages isn't that important. I like it. I think it's, if you're getting it as a wizard, it's super inexpensive. If you're getting it in your Book of Ancient Secrets, it's super inexpensive. So, like, yeah, why not? It will come up from time to time, even at tables where language barriers aren't a huge issue. There'll be a handful of tables where that, like, is an integral part of the game. I thought I was going to be at a table that was doing that. I just stuck it in my ritual book as a warlock, and I was the party's translator. And what ends up happening whenever you're, like, out on giant foreign adventuring is monsters you're not supposed to understand. Just don't, you don't understand them. You're not supposed to, you don't need to. You just kill them most of the time because they're monsters. So, like, if you're fighting giant elemental dinosaurs, it doesn't really matter if you understand what the elemental dinosaurs are saying, because they're freaking dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And like, most of the time, the common tongue is gonna just, no one wants to necessarily I don't want to say no one. A lot of people don't necessarily want to handle the hassle of, we can't communicate. This is not working. One quick note. Good.
Okay. All right. I was gonna ask this, like, what about as a tool for, all right, similar to we talked about knock. You know, like you're playing in this world. There are some doors you can't go beyond. And now I got the knock spell. My world opens up a little bit, right? Could this be used the same way? You know, you're on this island of people that don't speak your language. You need to get whatever done, but in order to do that, you need to communicate with the people. Like, yeah, like trying to pantomime your messages, that would get old really fast. But if you've got other stuff you could be doing, and then all right, I'm working my way up to where I get comprehend languages. Now I can talk to the people, and what?
This is one way. So you'll still be communicating in pantomime. This doesn't let you speak their language. It just lets you
Oh, that's true.
understand it. So you still have part of the language barrier hurdle there. That's why I like the goblin example a lot, is because they already speak the language you do. You can communicate with them, but now you understand whenever they're trying to obfuscate language from you. That's more of what this is good at. Tongues is supposed to be the upcast version of this, which lets you also return and speak back in turn to them in their native tongues, right? That's the point of that spell. This
Hmm.
one's deliberately supposed to be reeled in. Although, I will say, like, you can probably get by if you understand what they're saying. You can probably communicate with them in such a way that pantomime is easier or more fluid thanks to comprehend languages, right? I would expect
Or
that to be the
I
case
mean,
too.
or that this could also be, you know, one more tier in the opening of your world. Like, all right, now I can understand what they're saying, so I can get some more stuff done. I've opened things up a bit. Now we're doing a different part of the adventure. Eventually, somebody's going to get tongues, and now, all right, the world is my oyster.
I think
This,
concept
if it was deliberately set up like that, I think that could be a neat thing.
I think if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, that could be an interesting barrier, right? I think in
Hmm.
a digital space where there are predefined boundaries, it makes a lot more sense for this to work like that. We had it when we talked about Knock, I think is when I mentioned the genre of Metroidvania. The idea of these big sprawling maps that you get locks or keys that fit a bunch of different locks that continually expand the world open and open. D&D isn't that. D&D is the players find their keys first, and then the DM puts locks that they're allowed to open in place, right? It's not the other way around most of the time. A lot of DMs aren't going to make language barriers so comprehend language is a way that the world expands. They just will make language barriers if they know the players have comprehend language and want to be playing in that kind of environment. They want that kind of problem and puzzle at their disposal. It's kind of the other way around. It's somewhat counterintuitive, right? But like a
I don't know
good
if it
DM
has
wants to
to be
challenge.
though.
It doesn't have to be, but like imagine you're playing at a table where you don't ever take comprehend language. Like there isn't. I as a DM have wasted that prep time making a bunch of these gated content, gated ideas,
Hmm.
encounters, magic items, dungeons, or whatever behind quests, behind a barrier that the players aren't interested in breaking down,
Yeah.
right? Like, are
Well,
you gonna do
if it
that?
go-
Are you gonna?
if it goes too far, you could just they can find a scroll.
But like at that point, it doesn't. This is all to say that the point of this is. This spell doesn't necessarily facilitate that as you'd expect. It just
Mm.
in actual prep and actual DMing, unless you're like you have a book that has already these specific barriers in place and they're expected to do X, Y, or Z. But even in those situations, those books don't normally like they will give they want to be open so a larger variety of characters can play it, so they're not going to normally have specific gate restrictions, and comprehend language even at that point isn't that big of a restriction. It's just, does someone speak the language, and that can also circumnavigate the problem? Does someone have tongues, can pantomime do the job? Maybe they capture somebody that can translate for them, right? Like, there are a dozen different ways around this particular problem as well. You don't necessarily need comprehend languages ever, right?
Probably not, but but yeah, I think it's a solid 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go 3, but I think maybe at some tables with a very distinct play style, it could go as high as 3.
And I will say, like, I think that this is really innocent to put on a lot of sheets. It's not necessarily hard to. Bards and sorcerers probably don't get anywhere near this because they get very few known spells. But warlocks and wizards, if you can stick this in a spell book, it's almost free. And almost free abilities, especially ones that are this rich in flavor sometimes, that's fine. If you never spent a spell slot on this and you cast it twice in a campaign, that's probably good enough for a ritual spot in your book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, anything that any ritual caster or somebody with a ritual caster feat, that's
Find a
chuck it
spell
in as
scroll
part of the
this along
collection.
the way. Yeah,
Right?
25 gold later, you got it. Why not?
Definitely. All right. Anything else to say?
Perfectly fine. I don't. Twos aren't all bad, and this one is one such
Oh
example.
no. All right, that was Comprehend Languages. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments. I'm especially interested to hear about any kind of language type barriers or situations you've had in your game that you've enjoyed. Yeah, so like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.